Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 562, and today's date is January 9th, 2015, and the title of this episode is U.S. Government Central Bankers Push Recovery Illusion Before the False Flag Event. Now, we can see the government, the central bankers, they're out there convincing everyone, and continually convincing everyone, that we're in a recovery. Real estate's doing better. Retail is doing great. We had a great holiday season. We can see that they are pushing the illusion harder and harder. They brought the unemployment rate down to 5.6% because everyone now has a job. There's no more unemployment. Pretty soon it'll be down to 3%, and everything will be just fine. It's very odd that with this great news that the unemployment rate has come down, that the stock market wouldn't be doing better. Why is that? The opposite. Usually on Fridays, we have the plunge protection team, the high frequencies traders pushing the market up on a Friday to get everyone a good feeling during the weekend. But it looks like this time it didn't happen. We had President Obama out there telling everyone everybody will be able to own a home. They'll be able to put only about 3% down. Maybe in some instances, nothing down. If you're subprime, bad credit, no problem. You'll be able to get a home. He just announced that, hey, I'm going to propose free education to community colleges. The federal government will pick up the tab plus the states, and people will not have to pay. You will get educated, and you'll be able to find a job, and everything will be fine. And they are continually pushing this propaganda to convince everyone that we're in this recovery. Why? Why would they do this? Because in the end, they understand that they need to continually prop up the system. They cannot let this system crash without blaming it on another country or group. And this is why they have been doing this. This is why they've been pushing so hard. This is why they've been pushing the unemployment rate down, convincing everyone that everything is fine. Remember what President Obama told us. He told us that we are in a recovery. It doesn't matter if you feel it or not, or that you're not working. Just believe me, the president. We are in a recovery. You might have lost your job. You might be looking for a job. You might be on unemployment, and it's getting harder and harder to find that job. Don't worry. We're in a recovery. You might be losing your house at this time, or someone is coming to pick up your car because you cannot make the payments. You might have gone to college, and you cannot find that job. And now your student loans are coming due. But don't worry. We're in a recovery. I know you might not be able to feel it, but we are in a recovery. Disregard the retail stores closing. Not one or two, but by the hundreds. We understand, Radio Shack, JCPenney, Macy's, Aeropostale, Target, Best Buy. We understand a lot of these stores are closing hundreds of stores, but don't worry about that. That's normal in a recovery. People stop shopping. Remember, we're in a recovery. Doesn't matter if you feel it or not. And we can see right now they're pushing this as hard as they possibly can. Actually, it doesn't even make sense anymore. Because their illusionary numbers, their unemployment, their GDP, their inflation, are separating from the real economic indicators of what's really going on here. I mean, look at Europe right now. It's completely falling apart. Things are not getting better there. They're getting worse. Unemployment is going up. Debt is going up. Countries are getting worried. They're enacting more draconian laws to take away and violate the rights of the people. They need to spy on everyone. They're putting in place police forces to deal with civil unrest. I mean, this is not all by mistake. This is not because, they just wanted to do it. They understand what's happening. They realize that this system is falling apart. It's collapsing. And there's nothing they can do to stop it. The only thing they can do is shift the blame. But will it stop it? Absolutely not. It will not stop what's going on. And they understand that people are going to be angry. They understand that people are going to lose jobs. They will not be able to survive. Why do you think here in the United States, DHS, the police forces, have been ramping up on all their military assets? They're getting ready. They're getting prepared. Why do you think the Department of Education is receiving weapons? The IRS is receiving weapons. Social Security is receiving weapons. The bank examiners, they're receiving survival equipment just in case something happens. We understand and we know from all the information that's been built up to this time period right now that the collapse is getting closer and closer. Do we know exactly when it is? No, I don't have a crystal ball. We take all the indicators, the world indicators, the economic indicators, we put it all together and we try to make sense of what is going on here. We try to figure out, what are they up to? Why are they doing this? A lot of times we are 100% right. Sometimes we miss it a little bit, but we make our corrections and we say, this is what they were trying to do. And this is what this report is all about. Trying to bring you the information, to get you prepared for what is coming, to understand there will be a collapse. I don't want to see anyone out there at the last minute trying to figure out what to do. I'd rather you be prepared and ready to have the medication you need to take care of your family, to take care of yourself, to have the food ready, to have cash on hand, precious metal on hand, to have a weapon to protect your family. I mean, this is all I've been talking about. This is what I've been telling everyone to do, nonstop. We talked about terror attacks, false flag events going way back, about lone wolves around the country, around the world. And here we are today. We're seeing it unfold right in front of our eyes. It's like we predicted this. And I hate that word predicted, like we're predicting something. No, we're looking at what the bankers, the central bankers are doing and what the governments are doing around the world, and we're putting it together. So if you like to call it a prediction, that's fine. But I like to call it understanding what's going on. So we are ready. Because I'd rather everyone be ready than not ready when this thing hits. And we see this lone wolf attacks escalating right now. It's accelerating. It's pushing their agenda because they understand that they have a certain time period and eventually this system will collapse. I mean, look at the bubbles we see. The derivative bubble. What did they do to protect themselves? The bankers went in, added an amendment, and now the FDIC is going to back them up. Actually, it's the taxpayers. What did the governments around the world do? Of course, it was the central bankers. They created bail-in documents to protect themselves. To say, hey, if this goes down, we understand the taxpayers, the governments will not back us, so we're just going to take it from the people. We don't care anymore. Who cares? Lock their accounts down. We're going to take what we need. Period. What else did they do? Well, they went around the world and they're looking for revenue to keep the system propped up. FATCA, for instance. They're bringing in illegals over the border to say, hey, listen, we understand Obamacare was put into place, but we still need people to work and we don't want to pay these fines. So the corporation, the bankers decided, hey, this is what we need to be done so we don't have to pay any of these penalties. They've given us Obamacare, which is really not a health benefit, and of course they exempted themselves. Look at all these different things they continually do. And now, of course, we see the latest lone wolf attack in Paris. All of this is showing us that it's ramping up. We're getting closer. And eventually, it's going to occur. But don't worry. You are going to be prepared. You are going to be ready for what is coming. Let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, we understand Europe is pretty much in a major depression. A lot of the countries are really feeling it, and they're very worried about Greece. But when we look at Italy right now, we see that their jobless rate it continually rises. It's nonstop. They've hit a new high of 13.4%. Youth unemployment is at 43.9%. Huge amount of debt, high unemployment, austerity on the people. People are starting to rise up. They had enough. They can't take this anymore. This is what happened in Greece. And we can see right now the mainstream media, they're out there trying to convince everyone that everything will be fine with Greece. Even if they decide to leave the Eurozone, the European Union, it will be fine. Well, didn't they tell us this when they first received the first tranche of the bailout, that everything will be fine? Greece is out of the woods. They're fine now. Well, look where we are today. They're not fine. Germany is ready and prepared for the Greek exit, and that is no longer a threat to the financial stability. Well, that's furthest from the truth. No way in the world are they ready for this. German opposition finance minister, he's saying that no, Europe can't afford a Greek exit. He concludes that they are playing with fire. If this goes forward and they exit, Europe is going to completely implode on itself from what is happening, because other countries are going to see this and say, we can write off the debt? Wait a minute. We can leave the Eurozone? And this is why the central bankers are threatening Greece, continually threatening them. And even if they don't let them leave the Eurozone, the European Union, and they just write off the debt, countries are going to say, well, wait a minute. We can write off part of our debt? That's allowed? We can do this? Well, let's do it. And then other countries will start doing it. And what will happen? It will spread to one country to another. And you'll see bank runs then. Because, of course, what are the central bankers going to do? They're going to lock everything down. They're going to put capital controls in effect. We see already, and I mentioned this before, that the Greeks in November withdrew about 220 million euros. In December, it increased to 3 billion. The Greeks understand what is happening. They're taking their money out. And a lot of people there should be taking it out, because when the panic sets in and people start running to the bank, you don't want to be one of those people running to that bank. Guess what? The smart money inside of Greece, they're already out. Where did they go? Nobody knows, but they took their money already. They're gone. Now, out in the UK, what are we seeing? Well, over 1 million households in England are unable to heat their homes adequately, despite having one or more members in work, and this is coming from a leading British think tank. It has been revealed that the nation is plagued by fuel poverty. Some 30% of fuel-poor people in England are couples with children, 17% are single adults under the age of 60, 15% are single parents, and 12% are couples over the age of 60. The research suggests that some 49% who can't afford to heat their homes work, while 12% are unemployed, the research indicates. So we can see right now the UK is having problems. And it's starting. It creeps up very slowly. And everyone goes, hey, the town I'm living in, everything's fine here. Well, yeah, I call those bubble areas where you're protected from what's really going on the outside, but eventually it reaches those areas and it affects your area. I've seen it happen time and time again, where you're living in this great area and eventually it reaches there. There was an area where I used to live where it was plagued with very wealthy people, and back in 2008 when the crash came, guess what? That wealthy area completely fell apart. And we will see this happen once again. Actually, the school system there, the children that attended the school were cut in half. They had to let a lot of teachers go, and they combined a lot of the schools. So we can see right now that this will eventually affect everyone. Now, here in the United States, we are seeing that the U.S. government, the central bankers, they are telling us that the unemployment rate is at 5.6%. This is their new calculation. It's down from 5.8%. And of course, they expect it to be around 5.7, and it beat expectations. Oh my God, how did this happen? Everyone is working. Everything's fine. We're in a recovery. There's no need to worry anymore. And for those people who do believe we're in a recovery, listen, no reason to listen to me or anyone else. Forget about that. You go out, get that student loan, buy that house, buy that car, because you truly believe you're in a recovery. Let me know how it goes a couple months or a year from now. And I don't even know why you'd be listening to me if you truly believe we're in a recovery. It makes no sense. It makes no sense you would post a comment on YouTube or anywhere else because you believe we're in a recovery. Why would you even go to any of the alternative media that's spouting the opposite? You'd be too busy investing your money in the stock market, playing with all your new toys, and having that great job. Why would you even worry? Does it make sense to anyone that they would do this? No. However, because of the unemployment coming down, there was one problem. The average hourly earnings were the real details, and they were hidden in the report. The Wall Street expected about a 0.2% increase. Instead, the BLS reported a whopping 0.2% decline in average hourly earnings, with the last month's 0.4% jump revised lower by half to 0.2%. This was the biggest crash in hours earned since the data series began in 2006, which means one thing: the waiter, the bartender, the retail worker recovery continues. And I would say it's most likely in the waiter bartender area because we're seeing a lot of stores and a lot of people in retail being laid off. If all these places are laying off, where are they getting work? For those wondering why average hourly earnings in December plunged by negative 0.2%, well, in December, the number of workers employed in food service and drinking places, sub-minimum wage waiters and bartenders, jumped by 43,600 people, the highest monthly increase since 2012. What about the other industries? Low-paying education and health, leisure and hospitality, and retail sectors all topped where these people are getting work. The labor participation rate. Guess what? It dropped to fresh 38-year low. A record 92.9 million Americans not in the labor force. The labor participation rate slid once more, dropping to 62.7%, the lowest print since 1977. This happened because the number of Americans not in the labor force soared by 451,000 in December, far outpacing the 111,000 jobs added. The civilian employment to population ratio is at 59.2%. It is now unchanged for 4 months. So that tells you something. They no longer count those people who are no longer looking. But are they no longer looking, or are they looking and they cannot find work? That's exactly what it is. Because as we know, if these people have not been on an interview in 4 weeks, they're not counted anymore. And if you're no longer on any type of interview and you haven't found a job in a certain period of time, even though you're still sending your resume out, you're not counted. You decided that I don't want to make an income. I don't want to pay off my credit card bills. I don't want to pay my rent or my mortgage. I'd rather lose my car. I don't want food on the table. I don't want to go out to eat. I don't want to buy clothing for my children. I don't want to I don't want to get them braces. I don't want to do any of this stuff. You know what? I just decided not to look anymore. This is what the government is trying to convince everyone that everyone is doing. Does it make any sense? No, it doesn't. Now, we understand that the government, the central bankers, are trying to convince us that we are in a recovery. But let's take a look at, let's say, auto loans. The auto loan delinquency rates are surging to levels not seen since 2008. Why would this be? Everyone has a job. And suddenly, more than 8.4% of borrowers with weak credit scores who took out loans in the first quarter of 2014 had missed payments by November. Mark Zandi, the co-founder of Moody's, is forced to admit it's clear that credit quality is eroding now and pretty quickly. The uptick comes amid an increase in subprime auto loans, raising concerns that car buyers may have taken on more debt than they can handle. Of particular concern, loans in which car dealers push financing at extended terms of 6 to 7 years at relatively high interest rates. Even if the borrowers have weak credit and escalate debt-to-income ratios, the longer loan terms keep monthly payments under control and get buyers to purchase more expensive cars. To keep the momentum going in 2015, the industry analysis said car companies and lenders will likely have to push more aggressive finance deals and tap borrowers with even weaker credit. Kevin Dugan at Finch Ratings, subprime delinquencies and losses are beginning to grow at a more rapid pace than we've seen in a long time. But we leave it up to the Honda's head of sales to sum it all up. The industry is starting to do some really stupid things. And this is coming from John Mendel. And we can see right now that, yes, the auto loan delinquencies are rising. People are getting their cars repossessed because they really can't afford their cars. And they're pushing their terms out for so long that instead of paying $20,000 or $30,000 for the car, they're paying $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 for this ridiculous car. And they can't keep up with the payments. They're working part-time in retail, and all of a sudden, stores start closing down, and you lose that job, and you say, well, now I can't make my payment on that car. This is what we see happening right now. Now, you would think that people would be using their credit cards to finance everything, but a lot of people have their credit cards up to the limit. They're a little bit nervous about using them because their payments are very, very high at this time. And American consumers would not go out and spend on credit unless they really felt strongly about their future job income and overall wealth prospects. And the American people are not feeling this right now. In simple terms, rising credit card debt was synonymous with confidence and prosperity. And they used to use this to gauge how the economy was doing. But now they're kind of dropping it because a lot of people are not using it. The Fed reported household consumer credit for the month of November, and it is there we learn that not only did overall consumer credit miss expectations for the fourth month in a row, but this kind of led up to why the sales weren't that great during Black Friday or Cyber Monday. November revolving credit, which is the credit cards, not only declined for the first month since August, but it had its biggest collapse in November. And we can see right now, this was one of the reasons people didn't go out and purchase the goods, and it showed up in retail because they had nothing in their accounts. They were nervous for their jobs because they understand that layoffs were coming. Salaries were being decreased. People who are out of work are still struggling to find work. The only piece of household debt which did grow in November, and this is something that the government and the central bank likes to control, and that would be student loans and auto loans. Because what they do is they continually open it up to those people who really can't afford it. Those are the subprime people with bad credit. Those people who've lost a lot in 2008 and never recovered. Those people who can't work but still want things. Those people who think going back to school is going to get them a job, which that really doesn't want to mean. That's not what it means. Just because you go to school doesn't mean you get a job. I mean, a lot of people think that. They think, well, let me go for schooling again, and this way I can get work afterwards. But we're finding that a lot of the college graduates who are coming out of school, they can't find work. It's getting harder and harder, and they have a huge amount of student loans. Now, we can see the holiday season really didn't do as well as the corporate media, the U.S. government, the central bankers want us to believe. And of course, they're out there saying that retail is doing fantastic. But we're starting to see that a lot of stores are starting to declare bankruptcy, starting to close. Macy's right now saying that they're going to be closing about 14 department stores. And this is all part of their restructuring, because as the economy expands and we're in recovery, we need to close stores, lay off about 2,200 workers, because this is how it works. No, what happens is you open up more stores. Sales are so brisk and fantastic that you need to expand because you can't keep up with people just buying, and that's what happened prior to 2008. And now we're seeing the opposite happen. Where Staples, Radio Shack, JCPenney, Sears, Kmart, all of these stores contracting. Believe me, there's a whole bunch more. And they're contracting. They have to lay off people. They have to declare bankruptcy. They can't make it. They're not getting the sales. And we're starting to see this happen. Standard Chartered internationally is going to lay off about 4,000 people. More and more people are being laid off. And it's getting harder and harder for these people to find the same type of work. And this is why we see the increase in bartending, in waitressing, in waitering, in hospitality, leisure. This is why this is increasing, because these people are getting not one, but two of these jobs just to survive. And they're very nervous about using their credit cards because they don't feel secure in their income, in their jobs. The Baltic Dry Index, once again, has fallen 15 points to 709. We are getting very close to that 647 number where it came right after 2008, that Great Recession, which is still occurring. That number dropped to 647. Now we're at 709. I wouldn't be surprised by next week we've broken the barrier and we're in the 600s. Maybe the high 600s, but we're getting very close. And when we go below that number, how is anyone convinced that everything is fine, that manufacturing is just doing swimmingly well? It's not. It's falling apart. Actually, on this day in history, the Baltic Dry Index has never been lower. Unbelievable. It's falling apart. But of course, again, no one's going to admit this because they don't want to be blamed for it. They're waiting for the event. And you can see they're continually pushing the recovery non-stop, as hard as they possibly can. Now, we understand with Obamacare that Obamacare lowered the amount of hours, and he called 30 hours full-time because he saw what employers were doing. They were lowering people from 40 to 39 hours, saying, hey, we don't have to pay the penalties because they're part-time. So he said, oh yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the hourly number and drop it down to 30. Now what are you going to do? You're going to drop everyone below that and give them 29 hours and call them part-time? That's exactly what happened. And people went from 40 hours to 39, to 30 hours to 29. Well, the House is trying to fix this. They're trying to say, you know what? Full-time work is 40 hours. Of course, Obama is screaming and yelling that this is really going to hurt Obamacare because what people are going to do is they're going to be working full-time but at 39 hours. And the bill cleared at 252 to 172, but it's enough for the president to veto it, and this is exactly what's going to happen. He will veto this. Well, the president is out there, and he's introducing something new. It's free community college for everyone, and you will not have to pay. And of course, it sounds great. It sounds fantastic, and everyone should get an education, yes. I mean, and I'm not just talking about being a lawyer, doctor, an accountant. I'm talking about anyone in any type of industry, an auto mechanic. Yes, you need education for that. Yes, you can learn from other people. Being a plumber, an electrician, a computer analyst. I mean, a lot of these things you don't have to go to four-year colleges. You can go to community college and learn this type of stuff. And he's saying we're going to give free education to everyone. And he's saying that we can accomplish this. He says that a world-class education starts with the children, but adults need training too. It's not just for kids. We also have to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to constantly train themselves for better jobs, better wages, better benefits. The question is, just because you go for education doesn't mean there's a job waiting. These people who are being laid off from these corporate jobs, like Dell, Sony, IBM, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, many, many places laying off thousands of people. They have educations. They have nice jobs. They can't find other jobs. It doesn't mean just because you go for education, you can find a job. And this is what you have to do this. You have to maintain a 2.5 grade average. The community college, all they have to do is basically they have to offer academic programs that fully transfer credits to local public four-year colleges and universities. That's interesting. Occupational training programs with high graduation rates and lead to in-demand degrees and certificates. Well, it doesn't say that you're going to get a job. It's just saying you're going to get a degree or certificate. In-demand degrees and certificates. He really doesn't expand on that. What the federal government has to do? Well, the federal funding will cover 3/4 of the average cost of community college, and the states will pick up the other quarter. Now, let me just get this straight. Since Obama's taken office, he's racked up about $7.5 trillion. He added that to the debt. And of course, that's what they're telling us. We know it's much, much higher. And now he wants to do this. It's very interesting. How are we going to fund this? Who's going to pay for this? Well, the taxpayers, as always. So is this really free? No, it is not. And of course, this sounds great on the surface, but let's take a look at this for a second. The number of college graduates working minimum wage jobs is nearly 71% higher than it was a decade ago. And the average graduate leaving college with a $29,400 in debt. President Obama has unleashed a double whammy of ideas in the last few days. Think about this. He's reducing the mortgage insurance and cutting down payment restrictions for the FHA loans, providing huge leverage to segments of the society to repeat the mistakes of the last housing bubble. That's what he's proposed. And now he's bringing in everyone needs to get into student loans. That's basically what he's doing at this point. He's telling everyone, go to the community college. And of course, what job are you going to find? It's going to be very difficult, so you have to continue your education. And one way to do this is you can transfer these credits and take out a student loan. To keep the student loan bubble inflating. Plus, it keeps all these people busy. Instead of looking for work, you're going to school. And now we don't have to worry about these people for a short period of time. Again, they're propping it up. Now, according to the White House, all of this is going to cost about $60 billion over 10 years. Now, we know this figure is very, very low because this is what it always happens. They tell you how much it's going to be. They give you the low figure. Almost like the website for Obamacare. How much did that cost? How much is Obamacare costing? Everything they tell you is always very, very low. It's usually about 4 to 5 times higher than what they're talking about. Maybe even more so than that. Now, we understand the false flag. It is occurring in France. We understand the entire reasoning for it. We've been over it. But what's very interesting is that countries right now are looking at the situation and they use this time period to enact laws. They bring up legislation that's just been waiting in the wings there, and they use it to pretty much violate your rights and to try to take away more rights from the people. The Italian government is preparing to enact stronger anti-terrorism laws in the wake of the Paris attack. Italy sees this as an opportunity, much like the Patriot Act was used in 9/11 in the United States. Any terrorist suspects who wish to leave the country, their passport can be withdrawn. The police should have more rights to block websites that use the terrorist propaganda as well. The definition of terrorist is rapidly becoming anyone who disagrees with the government. The problem in Italy is the resistance against Europe. This is being fueled as unemployment among the youth exceeds 50%. And this is exactly what we're seeing across Europe and here in the United States. As more and more people cannot find work and the youth unemployment continually rises and the everyday unemployment continually rises, people get upset. People get angry. They disagree with what the government is doing. And they start to rise up. And this is why we see the spying. This is why they're getting ready for civil disobedience. This is why they are prepared for what is coming, because they understand, as we look back in history, this continually reoccurs. And we're seeing it happen right now. Now, out in Europe, we see the United States, and I mentioned this yesterday, they're restructuring the U.S. armed forces in Europe. It will increase the effectiveness of the country's military presence in region. Basically, what they're doing is they're combining forces now with NATO, taking out the waste, and they're making everything a lot more structured, and they are repositioning thousands of military and civilian personnel within the region. And basically what they're doing is they're maximizing everything for war. This is what they're doing right now, and they're preparing and getting ready. Just like they've been maneuvering and bringing in more military assets to the region, and they've been preparing for what is coming. And they know exactly what is coming. And in Ukraine right now, we see that is ramping up the propaganda. And they're saying that, the southeastern people, they are shelling the soldiers in the Ukrainian army. And they're attacking us more and more. So you can see what's happening right now. They're building up the propaganda. They're saying at least 6 Ukrainian troops have been killed in more than 2 days from the separatists. They're intensifying their shelling, and this is during the ceasefire, and the peace talks are coming up next week, and they're continually doing this, and they're using this propaganda. And like I said, eventually what they're going to do is they're going to continue down this line, and eventually what they're going to say is that Russia's getting involved, they're attacking us, this is why we need to attack, and this is why we've been seeing them build up their armed forces, this is why they've been training, this is why the United States is bringing in lethal weapons, because they are getting prepared for what is coming. Now we understand out in Paris, the false flag event, and here in the United States, we see the former NSA CIA director Michael Hayden. He's out there trying to convince everyone that because what has happened here, the French are going to come to us, United States, and ask us in that ocean of metadata, do these new numbers that we've just associated with these people, do these new numbers show up, and what have they been doing, and with whom have they been doing it in contact? We did that stuff for a reason. We did it to keep you safe, not to invade your privacy. Well, that's absolutely ridiculous. So basically, we already knew what happened. This whole purpose of them collecting all this data was to prevent it. It didn't work if you believe the official story. And of course it didn't work because that's not who they're spying on. And we know this was a controlled operation. So what he's saying is absolutely ridiculous, because everything that they try to convince us of why they're spying on everyone, is to prevent this, to protect us. Well, did you protect us? Is anyone protected from this if we believe the official story? No! No one is protected. So what they're telling us did not work, but we know for a fact that this was a false flag event, and it was controlled completely. But don't worry. The UK is out there, and they're going to allocate more than £100 million, $150 million, to monitor potential self-starting terrorists. So you see what all the countries are doing right now. They're violating everyone's rights. They'll be spying on you more. This is giving them an opportunity to do this, to find out who all those people who disagree with the government, and to keep track of them. That's who they're keeping track of. They're not preventing terrorism. That's absolutely ridiculous. In the last few weeks, we have put extra money, over £100 million or $150 million, into a specifically monitoring people who are going to conflicts like Syria or Iraq, or just monitoring the people in the country who might be self-starting terrorists. Self-starting terrorists? Who get their ideas off the internet. And they might do something. They might disagree with the government, so we need to watch these people. So you can see what they're doing right now. They're pushing this, and they're taking and violating the people's rights all around the world. Italy, Spain will be doing it. Actually, they are. France will be doing it. UK's doing it. Germany will be doing it. We know the United States is doing it. Everyone will be ramping this up. Canada, Australia, where the other lone wolf attacks took place. You can see it's all starting to happen right now. Now, the German Interior Minister, he also is out there saying, listen, we believe that terrorist attacks similar to Canada, Australia, France might happen in Germany right now. Well, we know it's going to happen because they're building this up. We've already shown and indicated that this was going to happen long and way before they're telling us it's happening. We knew that it's going to spread to Germany, UK, Spain, and then eventually hit the United States. You could see what they're doing. Lone wolves are everywhere. We can't follow them. We can't find anything. So what's good of all this surveillance? It's a waste of time. Now the Islamic State is out there, and they're claiming responsibility for the recent attacks on the French magazine, and they're threatening to target the United States and Britain next. We started with France operation, for which we take responsibility. Tomorrow will be in Britain, America, and others. He further said, and this is coming from the Islamic State, all countries participating in the coalition that has killed members of the Islamic State are now targets. And from MI5, al-Qaeda is planning a Paris-style terrorist atrocity in Britain. We have chatter. We know it's coming. We just don't know where. Andrew Parker, the Director General of the Security Services, warned that the threat of mass casualty attack was growing and that the intelligence pointed to the existence of specific plots. MI5 officers have increased surveillance of British fanatics, who they fear may launch copycat attacks. They include plans to blow up a passenger jet, Mumbai-style shootings in crowded places, or even hit-and-run attacks using vehicles. We all value our privacy, and none of us want it intruded upon improperly or unnecessarily. But I don't want a situation where the privacy is so absolute that terrorists and other who mean us harm can confidently operate from behind those walls without fear or detection. So please give up all your rights. It's not worth having. We will protect you, just like we protected the people in Canada. We protected the people in Australia. We protected the people in France, just like we protected the people in the Boston bombing. I mean, we know all these were false flag events, but they didn't protect anybody. These were all planned. Surveillance is not on terrorists. It's on the people. So they went on to say, and MI5 went on to say, that they are looking to hit the Western targets, and it's going to be a large-scale loss of life. This is what they're predicting right now. You mean like a power grid shutdown, like hitting the financial institutions, like maybe a dirty nuke or a bioterror type of attack. You see how they're laying the groundwork. It's all coming clear. Now let's take a look again at this false flag event. Now they follow a pattern, and here's a map of what they continually follow. It's the same every single time. They had a camera well placed beforehand to film the attack. Now, of course, the video is being taken down right now because everyone was questioning the official story. Where's the blood? It makes no sense. If the guy had an AK-47 point-blank range and blood was coming, there's no blood. So they started taking down the video everywhere, just like the beheading videos. They spoke perfect French. They speak in the language right in the country. They killed with military precision, dressed military style, killed from a target list. They already had printed signs and the social media campaign ready to go. They got away clean. IDs were just found out of nowhere. The French president shows up afterwards, then convenes emergency meetings on all the different laws they're going to impose on the people. There's always multiple shooters. Then there's a huge, massive manhunt, and they need to keep this in front of the people to keep everyone scared. Government officials talk about violating your rights. We should spy on everyone to keep you safe. Countries already have legislation to violate your privacy, free speech, and they start defining who is a terrorist. And eventually the shooters end up dead. And this is exactly what happened. They ended up dead. And we see this over and over and over again. Now, there were witnesses out there saying things were very strange when this occurred. There were lack of cars anywhere on the roads. It's as if, and I'm just speculating here, and this is coming from one of the witnesses, it's as if some of the roads were closed in the surrounding area during the attack. But the first police were on bicycles, we are told, so who blocked the roads? Then this witness says himself that there were police around and that the shooters acted like police security forces. Also, if these guys have terror links going back 10 years, why on earth were they not under surveillance, bearing in mind the heightened security levels after the number of vehicles attacked at Christmas time? a lot of this doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense. And we can see already they're examining the attacks because it could be from al-Qaeda, it could be from the Islamic State, and we see already that, yes, it is. And the so-called Islamic State flags have appeared on websites of several municipalities. They're showing that, yes, it has come from the Islamic State, and they're continuing the propaganda over and over. Now, what's very interesting about this whole thing is that one of the two brothers who killed about 12 in the massacre of the French magazine Charlie Hebdo said that he received financing by al-Qaeda, by Anwar al-Awlaki in Yemen. And they told everyone before they were shot dead that, yes, during the manhunt, during all this, they said, yes, we received funding, we were paid by Yemen, the al-Qaeda in Yemen, to do this type of work, which is, of course, now linking to the Islamic State, which is all one and the same. And we can see right now, this is pure propaganda. They are building this up because they're getting ready for the main event. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.